Hey, we're live. Today we're going to talk about consciousness. I have an interesting video. I don't know what it's about. We're going to talk about. Hopefully it's good. Just in case I pulled up this other video of Charles Bukowski. Um, don't know anything about him. I know he's kind of a poet or a novelist, I guess you call it. He's one of those people that it seems to me like he kind of is different genres all at once. So, yeah.
A personal information removal service that protects your online data from
Okay.
search sites and data that her life would be very different. When she was around 4 years old, Cynthia's parents began noticing weird behaviors. She was often unfazed, non-reactive, and unpredictable. She would cry or laugh at situations that seemed entirely misaligned with what was happening around her, like she was giving a performance, but on the wrong cue. When other children might laugh, Cynthia might cry. When they cried, she might smile. Her parents assumed it was a developmental delay.
There's like, I don't want to say this is documented because I don't know if it's documented, but there's like a ton of stories of kids being more uh, spiritually aligned, and then it just all of a sudden one day just snaps. Like there's all these stories of. I have a friend that literally said he was talking to his dead grandpa, and like he knew things that he shouldn't know, and like his mother literally brought him to a priest because of stuff like that. Like I feel like you kind of know everyone with that kind of story. Kids are they're attuned to something that we as adults aren't. There's something about them that isn't known, and it's I don't know, like to me those ideas are so interesting. Like even Jung himself was so interested with the paranormal, like he devoted a large amount of time to studying it.
Or incongruity that would correct itself over time. That's what teachers and doctors told them, at least. As Cynthia got a bit older and she could communicate more comprehensibly, things only became more unclear. When asked why she was doing something or not doing something, her answers were almost always, "I don't know," or "I thought that's what you were supposed to do." She struggled to connect with her peers and classmates. When her parents or teachers asked if she felt lonely or different, Cynthia seemed to not even understand what they meant. When they pushed a bit further and asked why she wasn't engaging with her classmates, she almost always responded with literal reasons. She would say something like, "They're outside right now, I'm inside." Or, when they asked why she seemed upset or disinterested, she
Like this to me, this doesn't seem that weird yet. Like I feel like there's just people that, especially when they're young, just don't fit in and they learn. Um, and nowadays, you're so quick to say, "What's wrong? Can we diagnose you? Can we tell you that there's something wrong so that you have that in the back of your head?" It's like, again, do there need to be diagnoses? Of course, but do we need to diagnose everybody? I don't think so. I think a lot of people can sort of cope with their ailments, and the moment you tell them there's something wrong, they're going to start thinking there's something wrong.
might say, "My stomach hurts," or "My head feels weird." Everything reached a turning point when, in third grade art class, Cynthia, along with all the other students, were asked to paint a portrait of themselves in a moment when they felt happiest. All her classmates painted bright, vibrant figures with big smiles and wide eyes, placed in settings like a beach or a baseball field or a fair. Cynthia, however, painted a girl with no facial features at all. It was merely an outline of a figure, painted in seemingly arbitrary dark colors.
Again, I don't like to the outside observer, this might seem weird, but it's like think about your dreams. Like your dreams are so out, yet they have some sort of tie to reality. I mean, as Freud said, every dream that you have has some tie to your day, the day before, and there's some aspect of wish fulfillment, and there is something to observe about your consciousness through that. Um, and like this is why sometimes it's difficult to judge art because it's the own it's the artist's consciousness on the canvas. It's the artist's interpretation of life. It's the artist trying to capture an emotion or a feeling or an instance, and it might not resonate with you the same way it resonates with me. And that little difference, like I again, if I was the parents, I'd be like, this is weird. Maybe if it was my child, I would be more concerned, but none of this is like,
And the background was empty. When the art teacher saw, at first they assumed it was an act of defiance against the instructions, but when they asked Cynthia if she was going to add anything, She responded with genuine confusion. No. Why? She said. Well, what makes you the happiest here? The art teacher asked. Me? Cynthia said in a tone that tried to be a statement, but came off as a question. After the art teacher notified Cynthia's parents about
Yeah, like I feel like this is what a lot of, maybe I'm reading too much into the situation, but I feel like a lot of parents, a lot of people in general, try to judge others and their happiness and bring them down and tell them that they're wrong and tell them that they need to do something else or be X way or this way or that way. Like, and I think this is where a lot of our discomfort in society comes from, our discomfort in ourselves comes from, that people our entire lives have judged us and we've listened to these people. And especially when you're young, it's very difficult to say, well, this authority figure told me I can't do this, this, or this, and like just disregard it. Like now, if somebody tells me something, I'll think about it and I'll be like, does this really matter? And in the end, I'm usually like, no. Because in every sort of insult somebody puts to you, there's some truth. There has to be for it to hurt, and get to the bottom of what's bothering you. And once you get to the bottom of it, disregard everything else. Disregard the way it made you feel, but see what you can change, see what you can alter. But I also don't put too much credit to people that are actively trying to bring me down, because if you're trying to bring me down, then there's something wrong with you too. And I know that, so I can just ignore it, just gloss over it, just push through.
the exchange, her parents could no longer remain passive. Later that year, after consultations with various psychologists and specialists, Cynthia was diagnosed with alexithymia, a condition in which an individual struggles to identify, understand, and express emotions. In Cynthia's case, it was so severe, her neurologist recommended that she undergo a brain scan to ensure there weren't any other more serious complications. When the MRI scans came back, they showed that Cynthia's brain was, structurally, totally normal. No signs of damage or underlying abnormalities at all. Later fMRI scans, however, revealed tangibly weak to almost no activity in various regions of her brain, regions generally associated with emotional activity and awareness.
All of these studies don't, so science can't explain consciousness, and science will never explain consciousness, because it's, in essence, it's like Kierkegaard's leap of faith. It's something that is so vast, is so rich, is so beyond our understanding, that all we can do is hold it as an ideal. And really, if you delve into what the poets talk about when they talk about creativity or consciousness or any sorts of ideas like that, they're just talking about God. Most mystics, most poets, just they believe in this universal essence, this universal consciousness that is just derivative through all of us.
The signals that typically painted experience with feeling were functional, but largely dormant, or not interfacing with the rest of her brain. It was as if the emotional regions of her brain were isolated and set apart, a remote island that could be seen but not reached or communicated with. Is there anything that could be done at all? Cynthia's mother asked the neurologist. She might experience them. Of course, most people happily obliged Cynthia's requests, frameworks, and theories around emotion. How they call the subjective, first-person experiences of raw physical processes in the brain. The professor changed the slide on the screen to an image of a brain and a neuron. Cynthia watched and listened intently.
Whenever you start trying to look at the structure of the brain and understand consciousness, I think it kind of dumbs you down. So it's, you can into one detail, but you miss the big picture. And I think that's what most people don't get. Like, you can explain away a lot of human behavior simply by understanding the chemistry of the brain, simply by understanding the structure and how things work. But how can you explain the when a mother knows that their son's in trouble? How can you explain when, you know, in spite of all things going against you, somebody has faith in an idea and then brings that into fruition against all odds? Like, there's aspects of humanity, there's aspects of the mind that will never be studied and will never be explained. And the more these aspects are ignored and not venerated, the less understanding we actually have of ourselves. And you can see this now, like there's a big shift away from, I wouldn't even say religion, I would say like like the metaphysical, the fantastical, the things that are beyond explanation, such as intuition or a gut feeling or a synchronicity or deja vu or feelings like this. Like all these things are evidence that there's more than the eye can see, and yet these things are kind of neglected. Like, why don't we study these fantastical elements? Why don't we understand the higher faculties? Why don't we understand the ability to create an idea from purely a vacuum and what this can do for the human mind? I think William Blake said it best. The mechanical mind knows only one solution, whereas the creative can find a solution to anything that is in front of him because he is unbound by his perception.
How on earth does that work, huh? Raw physical events equating to subjective first person experiences? Modern philosophers and neuroscientists are quite divided on the matter, as you might imagine. Some believe that this divide between what is happening in the brain and what is felt by the person is a permanent fault line, an untraversable crevasse between knowledge.
I don't think this is interesting. I was looking for a video that was like this. These videos are so long, I'm not going to make it through them. Hopefully, this is not AI. It might be. What are the comments?
In a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand.
The
Tell me.
visionary artist and poet
Thank
William
God.
Blake had a love-hate relationship with London, where he lived for virtually all his life. Though
William Blake had a love-hate relationship with everything. To Blake, the world was a vast, colorful place that was dumbed down by the analytical mind. And when you see like think of the most exciting aspects of this world, you know, particularly in art, particularly in the things that are of human creation. Think of the inventions that changed the game. Think of the things that defy conventional means but are still successful. Like that's the stuff William Blake loved, and that's the stuff William Blake wanted people to embrace. But really he's countering the Renaissance. Really, he's countering the Enlightenment and the straying away from the church and those sorts of ideas and wishing for a return to faith because through faith some of the greatest ideas were invented. Through faith some of the greatest discoveries were discovered, for lack of better words. And really this is central to all of Blake's writing.
he savored the energy, diversity, and dynamism that made the city great in the late 1700s, he couldn't help but see
This is
its
Nerd
dark
Writer
side
one.
too, the pervasive
I don't know if I've ever reacted to him. I don't know if I've ever watched any of his videos.
suffering of so many Londoners. In 1792, Blake wrote a short poem called simply London that captures with alarming clarity the dark side of his home city. Let's read it stanza by stanza and see, or rather hear, what he heard.
I don't think I've read this. Actually, I have read this. Yeah, I have. What's up, Sahida? How's everything?
In the metropolis outside his
This is a very
door.
good poem.
I wander through each chartered street near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. We get a lot in this first stanza. First off, we get the structure, a quatrain of iambic tetrameter with an ABAB rhyme.
Once you start getting into this stuff, I'm like, I no longer like. I think to me, poetry doesn't need to rhyme. To me, it doesn't need to have any sort of verse. It's what you're saying with it. It's what's in between the lines. And I think whenever you get into sort of these stuff, you kind of get away from the point. Like if you can do it well, if you can rhyme well, if you can do the structuring and the syllables and all that sort of stuff, like by all means do it. But I think too many people are too involved in that and miss the deeper aspects of it. How am I doing? I can't complain.
Scheme. The poem
Tired
consists
today,
of
but
4 of these quatrains, 16 lines in total. Blake also sets the scene here. The speaker is wandering through the streets of London, noticing the sadness and depravity all around him. We also get a lot of word repetition in this stanza, echoing the heartbeat repetition of the meter. Clearly, this repetition is important to the theme, but we'll find out what that is a little later. For now, let's zero in on the word chartered, a curious word to describe a street and a river. In an earlier version of the poem, Blake used the word dirty instead, but that word's only descriptive. With chartered,
we're gonna speed this up. Again, if you're analyzing every word of Blake, I think you're missing. There's a spirit that is in every word of Blake, and you don't have to understand the context of the word to get it. You can complain? Why can you complain? Come on, man. Don't you learn anything from me? If you complain and laugh about it, it's one thing. But the minute you look at your life and you say, woe is me, is the minute you set yourself up for more of that. And anytime you feel yourself in a negative feeling state, anytime you feel yourself in a negative thought loop and things continue to get worse and worse and worse, what you really need to do is just one, remove yourself. It's way easier said than done. I don't know if you meditate, but that's the easiest way to do it. But, also just take that bird's eye perspective and understand that most of the things we worry about on a daily basis, we won't even remember in 10 years. We won't even remember in 15 years. Better yet, like in 100 years, every problem that you've ever struggled with will be forgotten and nothing will remain. It's like you're spending all your time, energy, and attention into things that really aren't important. And I think you can always reframe it in that way. But if still you can't get over it, get out a sheet of paper and write down the things that you have that other people don't have. You know what I mean? Obviously, you have internet. You obviously have a phone or a laptop. You're alive. You know, food, what, like little things, and understand that. You look down. And you're like, I don't have any shoes. Well, there's people out there that don't have feet. You know what I mean? It's really easy to overlook our blessings. It's really easy to say, woe is me and my life is so hard, but it's also just as easy to say, I have this, this, and this. And I promise you, if you walk through this world with gratitude, it's a whole lot easier to deal with things. It's a whole lot easier to approach problems. I've never been able to solve problems when I'm in a state of fear. I've never been able to solve problems when I'm in a state of anxiety. But I tell you what, every time I approach a problem and I'm feeling good, every time I approach a problem and I'm not worried about the outcome, I can make the best decision. And that's really what you need to do. That's really what you need to focus on.
he conveys something deeper, a city in which the very streets are owned and controlled. As Blake's friend, the political theorist Thomas Paine, wrote, a charter which is supposed to grant
No way he's friends with Thomas Paine. I never knew that.
rights effectively takes rights away
That's a
from the many
big
and
no.
places them in the hands of
Dude, you already know that it's bigger than this too, because this is a portrait. So like, you've just been depressed. I mean, like, because you're saying that, like I can tell you're just in your own head. Like, obviously bad things happen, and obviously, like, I'm not telling you like just get over it because that's the solution, but it's not what you want to hear. And really, what you need to understand is like you're in your own head thinking about things instead of doing things. Like you're sitting there wallowing in your sadness instead of going to change things. You know what I mean? Like start doing the little things. Start doing the things you've been neglecting. If you've been neglecting your hygiene, go brush your teeth. I can smell your breath through through the camera, man. Go shower, go clean your room, go do the little things that are gonna make you feel a little bit better, gonna get you in a little bit better of a mood, and start like checking things off. Like that's really the biggest thing. Like you're not moving, you're sitting there, you're thinking. You got to get out of your own head. You got to stop thinking. It's counterintuitive because we're told that we can think our way through problems, but you really can't. You can solve your problems when you're not thinking, when it's effortless action, when things are just flowing, when things are just moving. But when you're sitting there still, like, what's I can't remember that. You just brushed your teeth. We got to brush them again, man.
of the few. As the Industrial Revolution sweeps through London at the end of the 1700s, the speaker sees freedoms
Trying to
curtailed
find this
and life
poem.
commodified. Even the river, a natural feature, is commodified. This restrictive environment is the source of the marks of weakness and woe he sees. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mine-forged manacles I hear.
43.
Obviously, the repetition has intensified. 3 of these lines start with in plus a fourth here. The word cry is used twice and every a whopping 5 times. This is also the only stanza.
Okay, so I don't know if this guy's gonna say it, but okay, I found it. Okay, why does
Where the meter is perfectly regular without any variation. These things make the quatrain feel like a heartbeat, a never-ending da-dun da-dun in every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, from which it's impossible to escape. Aside from this, the thing that jumps out here is mine-forged manacles, one of Blake's most famous phrases. The speaker suggests that it's not just the institutions and the powerful that imprison the suffering masses, but manacles that are
I really don't like this analysis. It's so boring. We're gonna go to this video.
Charles Bukowski was a 20th century American writer and poet, known for his unfiltered, potent, and often crude takes on life. Bukowski was born in Germany in 1920
Okay, I can tell I'm gonna love him
and
already.
then emigrated with his family to America in 1923. Bukowski had
This is a poetry class. I didn't sign up for it. Dude, everyone makes poetry so boring. Like breaking down the words, breaking down the structure, like I understand poetry, I don't understand any of that. Like Jimi Hendrix didn't know how to read music, but he's one of the greatest artists of all time. Like it's almost taking the artistry out of it by breaking it down into the things. Do I write poetry? Yeah, read my book. I don't rhyme though, so it's like poetic verse, I think is what it's called.
a horrible childhood, beaten regularly by his father, starting at age 6. As an immigrant from Germany, Bukowski was ridiculed by other kids for his accent and clothing, ostracized as an outcast throughout his schooling.
But to be fair, if you show up wearing this, I'm gonna say something to you. Like I don't try to be mean, but like you show up wearing this, back a few jokes. It'll be out of love, but still.
Accent and clothing, ostracized as an outcast throughout his schooling. Into his
One day
teenage
we'll go
years,
through this in
Bukowski
depth.
developed a condition that covered his face with extreme acne and acne-related blemishes, further intensifying his self-consciousness and isolation. The circumstances of abuse and loneliness imposed on Bukowski as a young child and adolescent laid the groundwork for his perspective on life and his desire to express himself as a writer. In an interview much later in his life, Bukowski said that his father was a great literary teacher because he taught him the meaning of pain, more specifically, pain without reason.
That's a crazy statement. Pain without reason. My dad taught me that. I don't know to I guess it's in every instance is the seed of victory. Like it depends on how you take it. So like maybe honestly you can take a lesson from anything. Any hardship can become your greatest motivator and it's just a crazy way to phrase it though.
When you get the shit kicked out of you long enough, you will have a tendency to say what you really mean, said Bukowski. In his 20s, after 2 years at college, Bukowski would quit school and make his first real attempt at becoming a professional writer, bouncing around the United States, doing short-term blue-collar jobs while writing hundreds of short stories. However, out of the hundreds of
Damn, if only I could write like that.
stories, only a couple during this time would go on to get published, and the ones that did found essentially no success. After a couple years, Bukowski basically stopped writing altogether, disappointed by the publishing process and his apparent inability to write well enough to be successful. Bukowski would go on to work various blue-collar jobs for several years thereafter. Then, in 1955, at 35 years old,
Seems to me like most of my favorite writers never are successful, at least at first. Like James Joyce, basically no one wanted to publish him until he kind of just out of nowhere got discovered. Kafka was never successful while he was alive. Nietzsche all but was ignored while he was alive. Um, yeah, really the people that I love reading the most have just not struck it big. Frank Herbert worked pretty much every job under the sun and then wrote Dune. His echoes, his words will be echoed on forever. I don't think that's the case. I hope not. Did I spell everything wrong? That's my biggest fear. Like I write something and it becomes like well known and like this guy couldn't spell like and or the like
after about 10
that's
years
my
of not
biggest
writing,
drawback. I can't
Bukowski nearly
spell.
died from a serious bleeding ulcer. He survived, however, and then soon after, as fate would have it, Bukowski quit his job, which was at the post office at the time, and began writing again. A couple more years went by, and Bukowski would publish several pieces during this time, but still, nothing was providing much success, and he was forced to return to the post office of which he had originally quit. Counter to the original time, though, this time, Bukowski continued writing while at the post office. Before his shift, he would use whatever time he had to write. Bukowski would continue in this for many years, getting a collection of pieces published here and there
I need to start doing this. I swear.
in underground magazines, all with very little success. With no real sight of success or money or fame or even just creating a living from writing, Bukowski
Should
continued
have hired an editor. I mean, why would I hire an editor if I like don't publish stuff consistent? Like I can look at it myself. I don't write long stuff, so
writing nearly every day before work for years. Of course, we know how Bukowski's story ended. He is being spoken about right now as a writer. A renowned, successful, and important enough one to be spoken about with significance decades after his passing, to be considered one of the greats of all time. Bukowski, however, didn't end up becoming traditionally or publicly successful until he was into his 50s, many more years into the second stint of working at the post office. Only after a long, continued attempt at writing did Bukowski's work finally become noticed and appreciated by an audience, and only after a deal with a publisher who agreed to fund Bukowski's work did Bukowski begin to make any sort of living from it. At 50 years old, on the tail end of the traditional career timeline, Bukowski got his first real shot and
honestly, that's like it's very inspirational though that like your entire life you did something that you loved and you got no recognition, yet you did and eventually succeeded.
took it. After it would seem like to many that it was over, it began, and he would soon become increasingly successful and famous in the literary world and culture at large not long after. It took Bukowski years and years of writing and toiling and trying to finally have circumstances work out in his favor so he could gain traction and find success as a writer, to get what he wanted since he was a teenager and fulfill what he believed his life was for. In this, it is at least initially perplexing that his gravestone reads,
Don't try. Watch some Kafka or Young interview, please. Oh, Kafka was. There's no interviews of Kafka. There are interviews of Young. I can pull this up.
right now, don't try. A message that seems rather grim, especially for a gravestone.
It's don't try is this is the Taoist idea of Wu Wei. Whenever you see the idea of don't, especially around a creative, all it means is don't do something that you don't want to do. Because like if you're following your passion, it's effortless. If you're working towards an endeavor that inspires you, it's not work. But other things that are work that you're not passionate about, that's the stuff that he's telling you not to do. Go all in on the thing that you are inspired by, and that's really all you can do in life.
As well as counterintuitive to his story. How could a man who became successful in fulfilling his idea of himself, a man who, although it took a while, found immense respect and recognition for his craft, all because of his relentless trying, how could this man leave the words, "Don't try," as his final offering? Arguably, perhaps this is where the most important idea can be found, not only in Bukowski's work, but in Bukowski's life. In a letter to William Packard, a publisher, friend, and fellow writer, Bukowski wrote, "Too many writers write for the wrong reasons."
So, interestingly enough, this is something that Schopenhauer said, that there's authors that write for money, and then there's authors that write because they have stuff to say. And too often, the people that write for money are the ones that are published. Think of the books that will only last for a few years. Think of the books that will not be remembered, and then think about the books that were read for centuries. This is sort of the idea he's talking about. Like, if you have something to say, then you have an obligation to write it. But if you're just writing for the sake of the ends, then you miss the point of it. Because anybody can write something that is going to follow the trends. Anybody can write a story or a journalistic piece, but it's very few people that can write things that stand the test of time and are for that purpose. It's almost like Kafka. Like Kafka in his dying moments understood that he didn't write for other people's approval. He wrote to express an aspect of his life that otherwise would go unexpressed.
They want to get famous, or they want to get rich, or they want to get laid by the girls with the blue bells in their hair. When everything works best, it's not because you chose writing, but because writing chose you. It's when you're mad with it, when it's stuffed in your ears, nostrils, under your fingernails. It's when there's no hope but that. In this letter,
Again, like I said, you're doing it for the sake of doing it. You're creating for the sake of creation. You're not creating for the sake of the ends, creating for the sake of the money or the recognition you're going to get. You're because it's what you want to do, because it inspires you, because it allows you to be your fully fledged self.
Bukowski is referring to aspiring writers, but he's arguably referring to something much larger, the notion of purpose and success and creative endeavors in general. When you were very young,
I also think we think of creative endeavors as painting a picture or writing a poem or writing a book or doing anything that traditionally quote unquote creative. I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. Creation is anything that comes out of you. It could be the smallest act as getting up in the morning and living your life in an authentic way. And I think we put this we put this idea of creativity on the back burner and we kind of lose ourselves in the mundaneness of life, in the mundaneness of going to the job, going home, going to sleep, and doing it all over again. And that to me is like a endless toiling. And the only thing that can bring excitement to life is that childlike curiosity, that childlike fun, that applying your creative faculties to problems in front of you. And I think you don't have to ever paint a picture or write a poem to be creative. You could just live your life in a way that defies logic, that defies convention. And I think you'll find the utmost fulfillment in that life.
and someone asked you for the first time what your favorite color was, and you decided that it was blue or red or whatever else, perhaps it felt like a choice, but it wasn't really. No one chooses how colors make them feel and why some seem to paint onto the brain with better feelings than others. We can
That's no. Whenever someone asks me what my favorite color is, I just say a random color because I like them all. Like, you know what I mean? Like it depends. Like color to wear, favorite color to use in designs. Like it depends on the mood. You know what I mean?
describe the reasons why we like the colors we like, but we can't choose why we do. The color, sort of, chooses us. In a relatively low-stakes situation like our favorite color, it's easy to just realize which one feels best and declare it without trying. How one defines their purpose and carries out the bulk of their life, however, is not so easy nor so low stakes, making it inevitably more complicated, convoluted, and challenging. Although perhaps it is, at its core, somewhat the same as knowing your favorite color. In the same letter to Packard, Bukowski went on to say, "We work too hard. We try too hard. Don't try. Don't work. It's there, looking right at us, aching to kick out of the closed womb." In this, Bukowski
Right. So what he's saying here is
in
that,
this
oh my, why does it do that? Anything worthwhile is already there. Anything that you're drawn to, you already know in your heart. And the moment you have to try to do something is the moment that you're doing something inauthentic. And authenticity is never going to bring you happiness. It's never going to bring you fulfillment. It's the things that we do that are thankless that really are the biggest, most important things to us.
Bukowski alludes to the idea that if you have to try, if you have to try to care about something or have to try to want something, perhaps you don't care about it, and perhaps you don't want it. Perhaps it isn't your favorite color. Throughout his life, Bukowski constantly returned to writing, never reducing or modifying his voice for the sake of something else, never letting the rejection or the suffering throughout the process ultimately take writing away from him. It's not that Bukowski didn't try, it's that he didn't try to be something that he wasn't. He tried to be a writer.
And I promise you, he had just as much fun writing when he got no success as when he got success. And that's really the secret. Like, think about the people that work their way to the top and are still unfulfilled. It's because they did everything for the ends. All of their work, all of their hardship that they endured, it's not because they loved doing that thing. It was because they love the outcome. And if you love the outcome, you're always going to be chasing the outcome. No outcome is ever good enough. If you love the work, if you love what you're doing, it's that saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It's that idea.
But he didn't try to want to be a writer, nor did he try to write how he wanted to write. He just did it and kept on doing it. At least creatively, we seem to often perform at our best when we are ourselves, natural and honest, attending
It's not just creatively, it's in all aspects of life. The greatest athletes are ones that can embody this state of not forcing, not doing things, just acting, using their creative faculties through athletic endeavors. Same thing as high performers. The greatest high performers are people that can use their intuition to their benefit, that can solve problems dynamically and creatively. It's never the person that's just a bean counter that makes it to the top that is as successful as the likes of Einstein or Tesla. Like, what else is Einstein or Tesla but a creative genius that use their creativity for science?
to who we really are and what we really want to say or do, without the addition of ulterior motives, without forcing it or overthinking too much. And perhaps this is, in part, what Bukowski meant. Truthfully, no one other than Bukowski can say or know exactly what Bukowski ever really thought or meant in anything, and none of this is
No, that's exactly what he meant. You can pretty much every great artist has like a few threads that are similar. Like when you talk about creativity, when you talk about consciousness, when you talk about God, it's all the same idea. It's this essence that speaks through you. It's this essence that's pure, and it just, if you allow it to just happen, it happens. That's these ideas that are being talked about. Being in the flow. Yeah, you can call it flow state as well.
to suggest that something as hard and complicated as
Whenever you talk about consciousness, like pure consciousness, intuition, creativity, art, flow state, wu wei, it's all the same thing. You see it in different you see it stated in different ways, but it's all the same essence. And once you start seeing these patterns time and time again, then you start to understand these ideas and understand what they can do for you.
purpose and passion and desire and success as easy or prescribable, because it isn't. It's all as unclear and complicated as the very brain that contrives the whole system. And it's not as if writing or filmmaking or painting or making music or business or whatever else must come easy to the writer or filmmaker or painter or musician, etc., in order for it to be the right thing or for them to be great at it. But it is likely, however, that if the pain and endurance of working through the process does not feel worth it, and you are not compelled to do it even in the face of rejection or hardship or sacrifice, then perhaps it is here where Bukowski might say, don't try. But if it does, if the thought of not doing the thing hurts
What's up, Sarav? How's it going?
more than the thought of potentially suffering through the process, if the thought of a life without it, or never having tried it at all, terrifies you, if it comes to you, through you, out of you, almost as if you're not trying, perhaps Bukowski might say here, try. And if you're going to try, go all the way. Charles Bukowski. Go all the way.
If you're gonna try, go all the way. And what this is saying is you can't have a backup plan. You can't have anything in reserve. It's I go for this passion and I succeed or I utterly fail. That's the thing that people don't understand because if you have a backup plan, then inherently you're not giving it all to faith. You're not having faith in the idea of the fact that you can do it. And that's really the secret to creativity. It's one, you have to be open to the idea. One, you have to be open to the possibilities. And two, you have to have faith in the idea that you can do it. If you have those two things, then you can accomplish anything. If you have those two things, then you can understand what it takes to get to the top. If you don't have faith in the idea, then the creation will never come to fruition.
Charles Bukowski. Thanks so much for watching.
That's pretty good video. 3 hours of a youngin. Um, introversion, extroversion. It's like introversion and extroversion are the least interesting aspects about Young. Should we watch the entire intro? Bro, it's so weird seeing him as a human being because I only know his words. Like I don't know how to describe this. Like in my mind, Young is like this mythic figure. He's like this great mind, and then you see things like this, and you're like, oh, he's just human. Like there's this like almost built up relationship because I'm so familiar with these ideas and like they've become interwoven with the way I view the world, and then it's just a human being. Everything feels monotonous. It feels sort of unfortunate. But like, it's your own doing. If everything feels monotonous, then you've lost sight of the bigger picture. Like, if you're doing something that you don't want to do and you can avoid doing it, don't do it. But if everything else feels monotonous, then you've lost your childlike curiosity. You're taking a seriousness to life that it isn't warranted. Like, anytime you delve yourself into worldly things and make the world serious, it's going to become serious. And there's no point to doing that. It's literally just a waste of your time. He became the myth he spoke about. I mean, I don't like venerate him like this mythic figure. It's just like in my mind, these principles are like so foundational to the way I view things, and then you're like, wait, this is just some old guy. Like, if I saw this guy in like the street, like I would like help him cross the road. It's like, meanwhile, this guy's had such a big influence on me. Why is this guy like having a harder time walking young? Look how stiff he is.
Professor Jung, how many years have you lived in this lovely house by the lake at Zurich?
It's just about 50.
Talking to you really gives me a lot of clarity. It's the thing is, you know what I'm saying because if I say little things like that and it resonates, you know these things. It's just you need to hear it from somebody else. But the truth is, like, I can't hold your hand to these things. Like, these are things you have to start recognizing yourself. You need to start reframing things yourself. Like, it serves you nothing to spend time in negativity. It serves you nothing to sit there and wallow in your sadness and your pain and not do anything. You know what I mean? Like, if you're feeling sad, do something. And I'm not saying like take your mind off things, but like how can you start solving these problems? How can you start addressing these things? What work can you do today that lightens your load? You might have 1,000 things on your plate, but you can't sit there and look at 1,000 things. You just have to start with one. Start with a simple thing. Start checking off the boxes. Start slowly getting the ball rolling in the right direction. I wish I could take my pain and create something great too. You can. The thing is, like, when you talk about creation and say greatness, every act of creation is great because it captures consciousness in a way that has never been captured before. It's just maybe it's not Paradise Lost, maybe it's not the Divine Comedy, but like to you it's significant. And if it's significant to you, maybe it's significant to someone else. Maybe you're not able to express something universal yet, but like simply taking time for creativity each day is perhaps one of the best ways to curtail some of your more negative impulses. Like to me, I have all these like I don't want to say pent up emotions because I don't really struggle with emotions anymore, but like there was a time in my life where like I was somebody that like never expressed myself, never was delving into my more sensitive side, delving into my more introspective side. And like the moment I started filming videos or streaming or writing, like something just clicked and I no longer deal with the same things because I find outlets for it. And it's all about finding a healthy outlet for the things that you struggle with. Like if you're an angry person, if you're a person that has all of this emotion inside of you, like, you know, start understanding that emotion's just energy. And you can use this energy for good or you can use this energy for bad. Like it's not it's really easy to give time and energy and attention to negative things, but it's also just as easy to give it to positive things. Like think of how many people sit there hating others, sit there hating on somebody that did them wrong, and meanwhile they have a ton of people in their life that love them that they could develop that relationship, but instead they're dwelling on something that really hinders them, really keeps them stagnated. Fortunately, I haven't been sitting there for the past 7 months, worked for 9 hours today, and I'd say I'm proud of myself. That's good. That's good. And like it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to like have these spells where you feel fed up because if you're happy every day, then you wouldn't elevate yourself, you wouldn't grow. If every day you went through life and you were successful, then at no point you'd have to be introspective. Then at no point you'd have to refine yourself and make yourself better. So it's like it may not make sense now. It might not be, it like may not come full circle now, but like there's going to be a day and age where you look back and you see the struggle, where you see this toil, and you see it has become what has made you the strong person you are today. But it's just the same. There's this almost fork in the road that you can either take this pain and suffering and become something better, or you can take this pain and suffering and use it as every excuse for being the failure that you become. And I need you to understand that failure doesn't happen when you lose. Failure doesn't happen when you fail 1,000 times or 10,000 times or 10 million times. Failure happens when you give up because it's not a failure if you learn a lesson from it. It's not a failure if it's a stepping stone to success. You should start giving your own philosophy on your channel too. It's so helpful. I mean, I don't necessarily have a philosophical system, but like it's in my writing. I mean, maybe I should share my writing more, but it's it's these like interactive sessions that I think allows me to give it the most. You know what I mean? Because this is not even my philosophy. This is my thought process. This is how I actively deal with the things I deal with. Like the person you see today is not the person I was a few years ago. Like I promise you, whatever you're feeling right now, I felt something similar. And these were the ideas and thoughts that I stumbled upon that let me get over them. And really, that's a lot of the reason why I do this is because I know that like I was a person that was I don't want to say weak minded. I want to say like dwelled on the wrong things. And when I was able to shift myself out of these perspectives and out of these avenues of thought, then I was able to become happy, become fulfilled, become content. And I think if you could say that about your life, then I think you could live a good life. You know what I mean? Like I don't need anything in this world to be happy. I already have happiness. And it's like that's so much to life. Like, I solved what Bezos can't solve. I solved what Elon can't solve. I solved what all of these billionaires and all of these celebrities can't solve. I solved my own happiness. And it's like, even on the worst of days, maybe I'm upset for 20 minutes, maybe I'm upset for 2 hours, maybe I'm upset for an entire day. But the next day I bounce back. And I can adamantly say that whatever is thrown in front of me, I can fix because of the introspection I've done, the work I've done on myself, the understanding I have of myself. And it's like, that's the greatest gift. That's the greatest thing to achieve. What's my profession, by the way? Don't worry about it.
Years.
Do you live here now just with your
I'm a
secretaries
writer.
and your English housekeeper?
Yes.
No children or grandchildren with you?
Oh, no, they don't live here, but I have plenty of them in the surroundings.
Do they come to see you often?
Oh, yes.
How
Dude,
many?
imagine your grandfather with young. I feel like Dude, you just go to him for advice and he's like, oh yeah, there is this old mythic fable in the 7th century that explains everything about your current predicament. It's like, Grandpa, I just wanted you to give me like, should I do this or not? Like,
How many grandchildren have
Oh,
you?
19.
And great-grandchildren?
Oh, eight, I think 8. And I suppose one is on the way.
And do you enjoy having them?
Well, of course it's nice to feel such a living crowd out of oneself.
Are they afraid of you, do you think?
I don't think so. If you would know my grand.
I would be. I don't think it would be like a physical fear, but like it would be one of those things like, how can I even talk to this guy and make a point? I mean, like imagine this guy's in your family and you got to argue with him. Like he looks so full of warmth and compassion and wisdom. Yeah, he's very different than most intellectuals you'll see because I feel like he truly is a mystic. He truly is a creative. And this is what a lot of people like to his detriment because there's a lot of people that dismiss a lot of his work because of this aspect, because of like the intellectuals of this world aren't creatives, and that's what they don't get, and that's why there's so much dissatisfaction in the world because the institutions of power don't understand creativity, don't understand the human mind. But like what made Jung so interesting is he was so willing to fall for his hunches. He was so willing to follow his heart, and like there's so much of consciousness in the psyche that is determined by that, and that's really what made him so great. That's really what makes his writing so fantastic.
Grandchildren, they wouldn't think so.
Like I'm sure if we pulled up an interview of Freud, maybe he would say something interesting. I don't know. I don't even know if there's interviews of Freud. I don't know if he lived long enough for that technology. But I'm sure if you pulled it up, like you'd be like, okay, this guy's very smart, but like it doesn't feel like he enjoy like you know what I mean? Like he's sniffing his own farts. He's like he's elevated by his own status, whereas Jung seems like very approachable. Like you have to understand at the time, this guy's a rock star in his profession. This guy's like the most important person in his entire field of psychology. And like, just juxtapose that to any professor that you see today. Like think of like the professors that are well renowned. Like I was about to say Thomas Sowell, but Thomas Sowell seems like pretty down to earth, unless you oppose his politics, then you hate him. But like the intellectuals we see today that speak are like, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you, I'm this, I'm this. This guy is one of the smartest people who ever lived. And yet you would never hear him say that.
What?
They steal my things. Uh, Even my hat that belongs to me, they stole the other day.
Now, can I take you back to your own childhood? Do you remember the occasion when you first felt consciousness of your own individual self?
That was in my 11th year. There I
So this set of interviews is what led to I have it right here. So this is Jung's, if you haven't read anything by Jung, this is his most approachable book, Man and His Symbols. This set of interviews is what led to this book. So basically, this book is Jung for the average audience, Jung for the non-learned, non-scientific audience, and his ideas most well summarized, most well condensed, and most well explained. Part of this is written by Jung, but also his top students, his top psychologist of his, is it psycho? I can't. Is it psychoanalysis? I can't remember what Jung, Freud, and Adler all had their own terms for therapy, but like his top doctors wrote this book, and basically the story behind this is after this interview, he got a ton of letters. I'm assuming this was the 59. I'm assuming he got a lot of letters and a lot of phone calls about how this was such a great series of interviews and how it helped him so much. And basically, the guy that's interviewing him was he approached Jung and said, "Can we write a book and you do something similar? You dumb down your words and you make it less scientific and you make it more beneficial to the wider audience." And Jung was opposed to this originally. He had a dream, and basically, in this dream, he was giving a talk to a crowd, but the crowd wasn't the usual crowd. It wasn't the people in lab coats and the doctors and the intellectuals and the high status people of the kind of college ecosystem. It was everyday people. And after he had this dream, Jung began to write this book. So, interesting enough, one of Jung's greatest contributions to the world came out of this interview. Jung's interesting because he had visions that today would be called craziness, but to me, he was just a very creative person. Like William Blake is perhaps one of the greatest creatives of all time, and the stories of him walking outside and seeing angels in the trees would probably get him locked up today. But yet he's one of the greatest poets who ever lived. So like there's this in all great creatives and all great artists, you see this borderline fringeness that is necessary to push the envelope, that is necessary to do things that other people wouldn't dare doing.
Now, was that associated with any particular episode in your life, or was it just a normal function of adolescence?
Well, uh, that's difficult to say. Uh, as far as I can remember,
I'm sure he's just gonna say synchronicity.
nothing had happened before that would explain this sudden coming to consciousness.
You hadn't, for instance,
Synchronicity or an
been quarreling with
epiphany.
your parents or anything?
No,
No.
no.
What memories have you of your parents? Were they strict and old-fashioned in the way they brought you up?
I'll be right back in a second.
Oh, well, you know, they belonged to the later parts of the Middle Ages. And uh, my father was a parson in the country, and you can imagine what people were then, you know, in the 70s of the past century. They had the convictions in which people have lived since 1,800 years.
How did he try to impress these convictions?
So really what he's saying is Jung's father was a preacher. So early on, Jung was kind of questioning faith, questioning traditional religion and traditional morality, and he felt like there was more to it. And he believed these things from a very young age. And I don't I he read Nietzsche very young, he read Faust very young, he read Schopenhauer very like he was very well read from a very young age, and it got him thinking about things in a manner that was very weird. He wasn't he didn't quite fit in as a kid. He was very smart. Very he's very ahead of the other boys, and it was he was kind of an outcast. I don't know if like socially, but just in the broader picture of things, his parents were like, "What do you? Who are you?"
On you? Did he punish you, for instance?
Oh, no, not at all. No, he was very liberal, and he was most tolerant, most understanding.
Which did you get on with more intimately, your father or your mother?
That's difficult to say. Of course, one is always more intimate with the mother. But when it comes to the personal feeling, I had a better relation to my father, who was predictable, than with my mother, who was, to me, a very problematical something.
So, at any rate, fear was not an element in your relation with your father.
Not at all.
Did you accept him as being infallible in his judgments?
Oh no, I knew he was very fallible.
How?
This, this is so funny to like, because he's like a kid understanding these things. It's you could tell from a very young age he was just different.
How old were you when you knew that?
Now let me see. Uh, yeah, perhaps 11 or 12 years old. It was hanging together with the fact that I knew I was. And from then on, I saw that my father was different.
Yes. So the moment of self-revelation was closely connected with realizing the fallibility of your parents.
Yes, one could say so.
Now, what about
But I realized that I had fear of my mother, but not during the day. There she was quite no.
Looks like we get past this introductory stuff soon.
Unpredictable, but in the night, I had fear of my mother.
And can you remember why? Can you remember what that
I
fear
have not the slightest idea why.
What about your school days now? Were you happy at school as a schoolboy?
Like he was a very poor student and then was like all of a sudden became extremely interested in everything.
In the beginning, I was very happy to have companions, you know, because before I had been very lonely. We lived in the country, and I had no brother and no sister. My sister was born very much later, when I was 9 years old. And so I was used to be alone, but I missed it. I missed company. And in school, it was wonderful to have company. But soon, you know, in a country school, naturally, I was far ahead. And then I began to be bored.
What sort of religious upbringing did your father give you?
Oh, we were Swiss Reformed.
And did he make you attend church
He was a preacher, so
regularly?
Oh, well, that was quite natural.
Yes.
Everybody went to church on
Yes.
Sunday.
And did you believe in God?
Oh, yes.
Do you now believe in God?
Now?
so this is one of his most famous quotes ever. This is there was the guy's like I don't want to say this because the guy's like very sick right now, but there's this interview where somebody asked Jordan Peterson the same question and he tries to have this moment. I'm not going to spoil it, but like he tries to do exactly what Young does and it just doesn't go off the same way.
Oh, well, that was quite natural.
Yes.
Everybody went to church on
Yes.
Sunday.
And did you believe in God?
Oh, yes.
Do you now believe in God?
Now? Difficult to answer. I know.
That's one of his that's one of his most famous quotes and this is one of his most famous like interview moments. And it's kind of beautiful to see because, you know, regardless if you believe in anything or not, like his entire life he was searching for this answer. And for him to find it and for him to accept it is just it's kind of very very full circle. Like it almost seems like all of his work was to prove that there was something more beyond just man and evolution and science and there was a spirit, there was an underlying force, there was a connectivity to it. And you know, you read Jung's work and it is very convincing, it is very compelling that there's something that ties us all together. And whether you believe it's chance, whether you believe it's essence, whether you believe it's just science and numbers and chance and mathematics, like there is something universal. And this is really what Jung is saying.
I don't need to believe. I know.
Well, now, turning to the next
But Jordan Peterson tried to do the same thing. It was so funny. I wish I knew the interview. I just saw the clip, but it was like because I knew what he was trying to do. You're not young, man. You're not.
staging point in your life, what made you decide to become a doctor?
that was in the first place a merely opportunistic choice. I really, originally, I wanted to be an archaeologist.
He damn near was an archaeologist. If you read any works of Jung, read Psychology and Alchemy, and you understand that Jung had some of the deepest understanding of archaic and big symbols of liver. There should be a movie on him. I don't see. Jung is somebody that if you discover and you study, you're inspired by, but it's also like there's things that are have a mass appeal. There's things that a lot of people enjoy, but it's very surface level enjoyment. Like think of reality TV, think of soap operas or procedural shows. Like they're they're good, but they're just a fart in the wind. They're not anything that stands the test of time. But like there's these mystics, there's these philosophers, there's these minds that kind of transcend genres and transcend time and will forever be present, but they're not for the mass audience. Like I can explain Jung and dumb him down into something that a toddler could understand, but that doesn't mean people will be interested in it. And that's just the natural order of things. It's Plato's cave allegory. It's that even if you tell somebody that there's a solution to their problems, they're not going to listen to you because it's far easier to stay stagnant. It's far easier to operate in the old way of things. It's far easier to operate in their frame of the world than to change and be faced with the unknown. So like I don't necessarily think that it would resonate. I don't necessarily think that it's even necessary. I think Jung's works speak for itself, and I think a movie would diminish it because Tarantino has this very famous interview. Like, there's this clip, and I've seen it 1,000 times, and I agree with it so much. He's like, biopics are not interesting because it's really just so an actor can win an award. Like, isn't it weird that every time there's a biopic, there's an actor and he wins like an Oscar or an Emmy, whatever the fuck it is, whatever stupid award it is. Um, but it's not an interesting movie. It's like it's just a person's life, and it's rarely like that interesting because you can't spend enough time with the person. And he said something very interesting. He's like, if I want to do a movie about Elvis, I wouldn't want to do a movie about Elvis's life. I want to do a movie about maybe Elvis's last day, or when he first goes into Sun Records and sings and stuff like that would be a more interesting story because it's like you try to wrap up life in a nice tight bow, and it's not something that's very interesting. It's just, you know what I mean? That's what makes like the greatest movies ever are movies that don't really have endings. Movies that kind of just capture a single event, that capture a single day.
Assyriology, Egyptology, or something of the sort. I hadn't the money. The study was too expensive. So my second love then belonged to nature, particularly zoology. And when I began my studies, I inscribed in the so-called philosophical faculty 2, that means natural sciences. But then I soon saw that the career that was before me would make a schoolmaster of me. You see. I never thought I had any chance to get any further because we had no money at all. And then I saw that didn't suit my expectations. You know, I didn't want to become a schoolmaster.
I think you would have been very bored by that. Um, Obviously, Young liked to teach because he was a professor, but I feel like he would want to do more. I feel like he would want to kind of be on the front line of things and be discovering things and be writing things that didn't just have an impact on a few people's lives. Like there's this pull to kind of share his discoveries with the whole world.
Teaching was not just what I was looking for. And so I remember that my grandfather has been a doctor, and I knew that when I was studying medicine, I had a chance to study natural science and to become a doctor, and a doctor can develop. You see, he can have a practice, he can choose his scientific interests more or less. At all events, I would have more chance than being a schoolmaster. Also, the idea of doing something useful with human beings appealed to me.
And did you, when you decided to become a doctor, have difficulty in getting the training at school and in passing the exams?
I particularly had a difficulty with certain teachers.
Reminds me so much of myself. Like there's so many teachers that were able to make interesting subjects boring. And perhaps that's the greatest thing that the school system does is it has a tremendous way of making the most fascinating and compelling things completely worthless in the mind of students.
uh, that didn't believe that I could write a decent thesis. I remember one case where the teacher had the habit to discuss the papers written by the pupils. And he took the best first. And he went through the whole number of the pupils.
Imagine being this teacher and like being like, "Oh yeah, you'll never be anything," and then the student becomes Carl Jung, and you're like, "I'm a complete."
And I didn't appear, and I was badly troubled over it. And I thought, well, it is impossible that my thesis can be that bad. And when he had finished, he said, there is still one paper left over, and that is the one by Jung. That would be by far the best paper if it hadn't been copied. He has
Never mind. Story different than I thought.
just copied it somewhere, stolen. You are a thief, Jung. And if I knew where you have stolen it, I would fling you out of school. And
Forgot the
I
story.
got mad and said, this is the one thesis where I have worked the most, because the theme was interesting, in contradistinction, to other themes which are not at all interesting to me. And then he said, you are a liar. And if you can prove that you have stolen that thing somewhere, then you get out of school. Now, that was a very serious thing to me, because what else then?
That's so crazy that your paper was so good that somebody thought you stole it.
You see? And I hated that fellow. And that was the only man I could have killed, If I had met him once at a dark corner, I would have shown him something of what I could do.
Did you often have
I was not expecting that.
violent thoughts about people when you were young?
No, not exactly. Only when I got mad. Well, then I beat them up.
And did you often get mad?
Not so often, but then for good.
You were you were very strong and big, I imagine.
Yes, I was pretty strong. And reared in the country with those peasant boys, it was a rough kind of life. And I would have been capable of violence, I know.
I've never heard this at all. This is so funny.
I was a bit afraid of it. So I rather tried to avoid critical situations because I didn't trust myself. Once I was attacked by about 7 boys, and I got mad. And I took one and just swung him round with his legs, and beat down 4 of them. And then they were satisfied.
And was there any
I don't think I've ever heard this story. That's hilarious.
consequences from that after?
Oh, I should say, yes. From then on, I was always suspected that I was at the bottom of every trouble. I was not, but they were afraid.
I feel like whenever somebody says, "I didn't do anything wrong," did you? I mean, maybe the teachers had it out for you. Like every time somebody's like, "Well, this person just doesn't like me," and then they explain the story, I'm like, "There's a very obvious reason why they don't like you."
And I was never attacked again.
Well, now, when the time came that you qualified as a doctor, what made you decide to specialize in being an alienist?
Yeah, that is rather an interesting point. When I had finished my studies practically, and when I um, uh, uh, didn't know what I really wanted to do, I had a big chance to follow one of my professors. He was called to a new position in Munich, and he wanted me as his assistant. And, but then, in that moment, I
Freud, Third World War. It's interesting.
uh, studied for my final examination. Um, I came across the textbook, a textbook of psychiatry. Up to then, I thought nothing.
At this time, like psychiatry really wasn't that respected of a profession. Um, so what you need to know is that really early on, psychiatry was it came from hypnosis, and Freud kind of take took it away from hypnosis. And interesting enough, there's like very fascinating case studies with hypnosis and its capabilities and what it can do and all sorts of stuff like that. But the problem with hypnosis, as Jung coined it, is that it's temporary. So while you can get drastic changes, while you can affect somebody and impart a new lifestyle and a new way of approaching problems, it's not something that lasts. And this is what Freud kind of did is he took the good elements of hypnosis and kind of imparted them into therapy and made it something that was progressive and made it something that's long lasting and made it something that you can actively take away from and stop and the effects don't go away. There's a very funny story of Jung early on. I don't know if he's going to tell it in this interview, but basically he was giving like a like I don't want to say like a TED talk, but like he was showing people how to hypnotize people and the effects of hypnotism. And he gets this patient and she comes in on crutches and he starts putting her in a trance, but before he starts, she goes into the trance and for 10 minutes he's trying to wake her up and the whole time he's trying to wake her up, he's like freaking out but trying to keep it like not scare people in the audience. And she wakes up and miraculously she's like, I'm cured. And she walks away off the crutches. And Young's like, I didn't do anything in his own head. And everyone starts clapping and like, this guy's a magician. Like, it's one of the funniest stories.
About it because our professor then wasn't particularly interesting. And I only read the introduction to that book where certain things were said about psychosis as a maladjustment of the personality. That hit the nail on the head. In that moment, I saw I must become an alienist. My heart was thumping wildly
Saying an analyst, I was like, what the hell is an alienist?
in that moment.
I was like, what is
When
that
I
word he
told
keeps
my
saying?
professor I wouldn't follow him, I would study psychiatry, he couldn't understand it, nor my friends, uh, because
This was Freud was very instrumental in it becoming a widely accepted science, but it's very at the time. It's very like a fad. It's not something that's well respected because if you really look at the origins of psychology, it comes from philosophy, which really comes from religion, and whenever you start like trying to bring these things into an institutional setting, it's kind of difficult. Why are you saying meow? What? What is going on?
in those days psychiatry was nothing, nothing at all. But I saw one great chance to unite certain uh, uh, contrasting things in myself, namely beside medicine, beside natural science, I always had studied history of philosophy.
So what drew Jung to consciousness is you meowing? I mean, that's an interesting way to use consciousness. I don't think it's a productive one, but so what really drew Jung to psychology is it could blend the analytical aspects of the mind with the more fantastical. If you think about people, they're very complex. They're their own system, they're their own universe, and there's almost this like this want to quantify things. This is really what you see with Freudian psychology, and this is what Jung disagreed with the most. There's this want to group people into to one box or the other and give them these terms and treat them as such. And every dream, this symbol means this and this and this, and it must mean this, and like tie it all back to a few things. Whereas Jung was more so like mapping consciousness and using each individual as an individual and understanding them to give them the best treatment possible. And it's kind of drawing into his more creative aspect of his.
And such subjects. It was just as if suddenly two streams were joining.
And how long was it after you took that decision that you first came in contact with Freud?
For me, it's knowing that one has control over itself, but I use consciousness as self-control. I should be a uni professor. Been listening for a while. Really interesting. The thing is, like, maybe, maybe I'd be able to, but I wouldn't have the same freedom that I do now. Like, if I want to talk about Jung, I talk about Jung. If I want, like, the problem with being a professor is that you have to speak about set subjects, and I like to kind of pull from different aspects. I think that's the most interesting way to approach life is that you see the same patterns in people in different avenues, and you tie them together and kind of come to an amalgamation of life. Like I'm just as interested in philosophy as I am in psychology and religion and other such subjects that kind of blur the lines of genres. But I mean, people have told me that, but it's like this is more fun to do. It really is because like I don't have to dress up. I don't have to go in. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to grade papers. Like I'm just talking. And I'm talking and there's an interesting back and forth and I think it's much more like there's no how do I say this? There's no respectability to like I'm just somebody talking on the internet, so we don't have to be serious. But if I was in a classroom, then I'd have to be serious. I'd have to have some profession. I'd have to have some level of etiquette and such, and I couldn't curse and I couldn't talk about certain things because it's like you know what I mean? I don't I think that'd be very limiting. I think it'd be very boring. But I appreciate the sentiment. Maybe in a perfect world where university was a place of actual study and not a place of you take this class so you can get a job.
Oh, that was at the end of my studies, and then it took quite a while until I met Freud. You see, I finished my studies in 1900, and I met Freud only very much later. By I read, uh, in 1900 I already read his dream interpretation, and by Freud.
Freud's interpretation of dreams is over here. This book is like this is one of Freud's like seminal works, and I'm so bored. Like he was always on the precipice of saying something extremely interesting and then took it the most boring way possible. And I was like, I was very much like, I'm reading his dream analysis and I'm like, you just made it so black and white, so universal, whereas this is an individual and like perhaps there's an element of what you said that's true, but I think you're not imparting this person's personality into that analysis.
studies
It was more of a blanket
about
diagnosis than a
hysteria,
specific one.
but that was merely literary, you know. And then in 1907, I became acquainted with him personally.
Will you tell me how that happened? Did you go to Vienna?
Oh, well, I'd written a book about the psychology of dementia precox, that one called schizophrenia then. And I sent him that book, and thus we became acquainted. When I went to Vienna for
There's a very famous, this was in Jung's like semi-autobiography. There's a very famous story of Jung basically bringing this discovery to Freud. And the discovery was that like this woman had like a psychotic break and like she had like done something really bad. I don't want to even say because it's gonna get me like demonetized. But like basically she had a psychotic break and did something and she couldn't come to grips with it and like her psychotic episodes were correlated with this instance. So Jung proposed to Freud, he's like, do you think if I was able to introduce this actual facts and these things to this person that I'd be able to cure them of their schizophrenia? And Freud was like, that's an interesting idea, but do you really want to spend so much time with such an unpleasant looking woman? And it's so funny that like this is literally Freud saying this, like a man that's supposed to be like at the cutting edge of his field, and like this could be such an interesting and this fascinating discovery that could help so many people. And it's like that's that's his response. Like, do you really want to be around somebody that smells weird? And honestly, fair because if somebody like there's just certain people that like I talk to them like I feel bad, but like just like I don't want to be around you. I don't know. I just get a weird feeling. Has anyone ever told you to be a uni professor? You're way too knowledgeable to not become one. Your explanation is so on point that it's hard to not understand difficult ideas when you explain. Literally 2 messages ago, somebody told me to become a professor. So yes, people have told me. Um, I really wouldn't want to go that route. I would much rather just stream. Like, I think I can do much more interesting stuff this way. Um, I don't want to have to go back to more school. I already have a like I already went to college for 7 years. Like I have a master's degree. Like I don't want to go get more, you know what I mean? Like the things I could teach would be so boring. Like I don't have philosophy qualifications, so how could I teach philosophy? Or I don't have psychology qualifications, so how could I teach psychology? I mean, I've written a book, so maybe I could teach writing, but like liberal arts is it's not. I don't think the approach to liberal arts is really one that's encompassing of the bigger picture, you know. Unpleasant woman is diabolical. Yeah, it is. It's so funny to there's a few stories of Freud that are just like it's I can't help but laugh. Open a university of your own, like an accepted 2000. I don't see the thing is like I wouldn't want to give out degrees. I think degrees kind of defeat the point of education. You know what I mean? Like really what a degree is it's just a qualification because you can't get IQ test for a job. Um, and it's a way to make the government money and institutions money. Like, I don't like the structure of it. Like, if it was a place where I could just do an actual Socratic method and have fun and stuff like maybe if I could set that up, but also it's like I could just do that online. And I think I could reach much more people. And it's, you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's so easy to turn on a camera and just talk when I want to talk. But if I had to strictly adhere to a schedule, then it would become a job and it'd become boring. So it's almost this open nature to it is like more enjoyable. But the story I was going to tell about Freud is so Freud basically said that any phallic object in a dream, you can look that up, I'm not going to explain it. Any phallic object in a dream is repressed homosexuality. And Freud's daughter was like, but didn't you tell me that you had a dream with a cigar? And he goes, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. It's like one of the funniest copes I've ever heard. Yeah, I get what you mean, buddy. The way life is shaped is soul sucking at this point. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, I think there's going to be a real shift away from these institutions. I think less people than ever are putting weight into these institutions, and it's gonna do one of two things. It's gonna take away all of their power, and they're gonna become very niche, or they're gonna have to compete, and they're gonna have to actually become places where people are inspired, where great things happen. But to me, these things are just a business.
Fortnight then, and then we had in very uh, uh, long and penetrating conversations, and that settled it.
And this long and penetrating conversation was followed by personal friendship.
Oh yes, it soon developed into a personal friendship.
And what
It was almost like Freud was almost like a father figure to him at one point. And there's this very famous quote from the Zarathustra, perhaps Nietzsche's best work, and it's if you're forever my student, then you failed me, something along those lines. And basically, they broke up, like they weren't dating. They split apart professionally because Jung wrote, I don't have it here. I used to have it around me. But there's this book, it's called The Psychology of the Unconscious. And basically, what he wrote, I don't know if you could say proved because in psychology it's very difficult to prove things, but like it purported a theory that was contradictory to Freud, and Freud was like, "You can't do this," and like Jung refused to back down, and they split professionally, and they were no longer friends. They no longer really talked. I don't know if they talked at any point after this, but this is really where Jung went on his own, and this is actually where the Red Book comes from. The one of Jung's most interesting works, we'll say. Like he basically went insane because he lost all of his credibility, all of his respect. He had to start from square one, and through this process, he kind of healed himself and was able to come back and bounce back better and be more willing and able to do what it took to become the best doctor he could be.
what sort of man was Freud?
Well, he was a complicated nature, you know. I liked him very much, and but I soon discovered that
He was very stubborn. Freud was unwilling to so like Freud had a dream that he couldn't understand. And Jung was like, well, if you tell me a little bit about your history, then I can break it down for you. And, Freud was unwilling to do it because he was gonna tell an embarrassing story that was gonna hurt his credibility, and it was going to basically hurt his reputation. He cared more about his reputation than he did anything else. So he was unwilling to fix himself, to heal himself through his own practices than to jeopardize his reputation. It's very hypocritical in a sense.
when he had thought something, then it was settled. While I was doubting all along the line, and it was impossible to discuss something really a fond. You know, he had no philosophical education, particularly.
He so Freud was inspired by Faust. He was inspired by I think he cited Nietzsche in their interpretations of dreams, but obviously Dostoevsky and Schopenhauer and people like that. Really, a lot of his early works are kind of derivative of that. That's what I really see psychosexual theory as just the will to live put in a psychological lens. I don't know if I'm the only one to say that, but to me, it's basically the same. It's kind of he's taking it and using it as a clinical idea of things. Because basically, Freud's psychosexual theory, put very simply, is everything, every like problem you have is repressed sexuality. And it's not, people take it very literally. It's a blanket term because Freud coined the libido, which we all know what libido means. We call it sex drive, but Freud believed there was more. It was like the need for human beings to be accepted and revered for some sort of status, some sort of skill they had. So like it's not just the one aspect of things. It's all encompassing. It's like this lust for life, this need to do certain things. Think of like the baseline needs of organisms to survive and reproduce. that sort of thing. So I really just see it as a placeholder for the will to live and putting it in a psychological lens instead of a philosophical lens.
You see, I was studying Kant, and I was steeped in it.
I have not studied Kant yet, and I don't really want to. Every book I see by him is like this big, and to me, everything I read about him states the Platonic idea of forms. Like really, Kant's um big contributions to me that I know, maybe I'm completely wrong, is that he wanted to divorce a set of morality from Christianity because if you are a rich person and you donate for the social status it gives you, are you a good person? Or did you just do it for the ends? Did you do it because people like you? Did you do something out of the goodness of your heart, or did you do something because it was required of you? And that's why Kant was trying to divorce morality from Christianity, because I think he was a Christian, but he thought it kind of devolved it and kind of took away the point of it. And I think that's an interesting idea philosophically. But and the other one is his critique of pure reason and that there's no such thing as absolutes, which I think is very obvious. Like I view the world in a certain lens because I've had certain experiences and I've been raised in a certain way, and I see things biasedly through my lens. And you view things differently because of the same thing. And if we observe the same object, we're going to describe them in different ways. It might correlate pretty much completely, but we use different words. We describe them in different ways. We see in essence different realities. If we wrote down on a piece of paper what we saw, somebody might not understand that we're talking about the same observation. And that's the Platonic idea of forms, but very, very simply.
And, uh, and that was far from Freud. So from the very beginning, there was a discrepancy.
Did you in fact grow apart later, partly because of a difference in temperamental approach to experiment and proof and so on?
Well, of course, there is always a temperamental difference. And his approach was naturally different from mine because
Freud was very black and white, where Jung was more open to interpretation. Freud was, I see this set of symptoms, I diagnose. Jung was, I see this set of symptoms, let me learn about the person and understand that person so that I can best help them. That's the big difference.
his personality was different from mine. That led me into
And you can see like if you observe society as a whole, you can say we can impart this into intellectuals. It's an easier example, but society as a whole likes simple solutions, likes a black and white answer, likes a us versus them. Like, you know, to talk to the most ignorant political person you could talk about. I don't care what they believe, like I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. Like they think that if their side wins, everything will become perfect. That's the way Freud approached things. Like if I know something, then I can fix you. Whereas Jung was more open-ended. It was a yes and or maybe but instead of a yes or no. That sort of things. It's really the difference between Freud and Jung is the difference between the Platonic idea of forms and the Aristotelian idea of forms, which the Aristotelian idea of forms is yes or no. The Platonic idea of forms is I see things, but I can't see everything. Like everything in the room right now that has a color is not actually that color, but it's resonating at a certain frequency that gives the appearance of colors. So like there's things that exist beyond my observation that I can't explain that I must be cognizant of. And that's really the problem with intellectuals is they don't have this open-endedness. They have an ends to the means. They have a thesis and they prove it, and they think that because they have this thesis and it was proven that statement is infallible, that there's not another solution, that there's not another answer. That's really the difference between Freud and Jung.
my later investigation of psychological types. There are definite attitudes. Uh, some people are doing it in this way and other people are doing it in another typical way. And there were such differences between myself and Freud too.
Do you consider that Freud's standard of proof and experimentation was less high than your own?
Well, you see, that is an evaluation I'm not competent of. I am not my.
That's like a blanket statement. You can't really like see what I mean? Like Jung, he was giving Jung a layup to say, I was so much better than Freud. And you listen to any politician, listen to any person that's interviewed and given a softball question like this, they'll say, yeah, I probably agree. Like Freud and Jung were at the end bitter enemies. Like Freud said some really defamatory things about Jung at some point, and I'm not sure if he ever recanted them, but Freud basically like accused Jung of being part of some of the worst ideas in history, and Jung had every right to be like, yeah, fuck this guy. I don't think he was this good or this like, but he's very cognizant of the fact that Freud had some aspects right, and he was not willing to throw away the baby with the bathwater.
My own history, or my historiographer. I, with reference to certain results, I think my method has its merits.
Tell me, did Freud himself ever analyze you?
Uh, yeah, oh yes, I submitted quite a lot of my dreams to him, and so did he.
And
In Jung's autobiography, it's called Memories, Dreams, Reflections. He tells Freud a dream he had, and Freud completely like messed up and basically like I can't remember what the dream was, but it was like something of like Jung like overcoming like father figure, like it was something like that, and like basically like Freud thought like Jung had like a dream of like taking him out. So like from that moment on, he was like very skeptical of Jung and kept him at arm's distance. Like very funny, where he's like, Jung was like, that's not what the dream was in his own head, but he didn't want to tell him.
he to you, yes.
Oh yes,
Yes.
yes.
Um, do you remember now, at this distance of time, what were the significant features of Freud's dreams that you noted at the time?
Well, that is rather indiscreet to ask. You know, there is such a thing as a professional secret.
He's been dead these many years.
Yeah, yes, but these regards last longer than life.
See, like his bitter enemy, he's not willing to talk about. I'm sure he could lose his license, but like, you're gonna take Carl Jung's away from being a doctor. Like, it is a breach of doctor-patient confidentiality, but like, this guy doesn't need, like, he doesn't need a certification at this point. Like, people just go to him because he's young.
I prefer not to talk about it.
Well, may I ask you something else then, which perhaps is also indiscreet? Is it true that you have a very large number of letters which you exchanged with Freud, which are still unpublished?
Yes.
When are they going to be published?
Well, not during my lifetime.
You would have no objection.
I wonder if they were ever, let me look that up real quick. Don't think they were because I haven't heard anything about them. Oh, wait, they were. 360 letters. Wow, okay. Maybe it's just not sold in bookstores. You have a divine intervention to become a uni professor. I don't want that though. Like I would have certain like if I was approached by a school, I would have certain demands. It would be like one, you can't tell me what to do, which I don't think they would do. Um, two, I'm allowed to say whatever I want and push whatever bound, and I don't have to listen to complaints by students. And like three, I'm not really gonna have grades. Like my class isn't gonna be something that just checks a box. Like my class is gonna be something that you take because you want to take it. And like in fact it won't be formal. Like that's what I would do. I don't know any university that would do that because that it's a business. Like you need to be able to charge $3,000 per credit. No, it's like $1,000 per credit. So like if it's a 1 hour or 2 hour class, it'd be $1,000 or 2,000. Like, you know, there's just there's too many restrictions that would make it not feasible.
Objection to them being published after your life?
Oh, no, not at all.
Because they are probably of great historical importance.
I don't think so.
Then why have you not published them so far?
Because they were not important to me enough. I see no particular importance in them.
They are concerned with personal matters.
Well, partially. But I wouldn't care to publish them.
Well, now, can we move on to the time when you did eventually?
I think a lot of that stuff's like a cash grab. Like there's so many like authors and artists that have their letters published, and it's like some stuff is better unsaid. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like how social media has kind of destroyed the idea of celebrity. Like there's so many celebrities that I don't want to know what they think. Like, do I care what Sylvester Stallone thinks about politics? No, I just want to see him play Rocky. Do I care about what Tom Cruise or Leonardo DiCaprio think about the world? No, I just want to see them pretend to be someone else. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the more I know about somebody, the less I like them, the less they have this mythic place in pop culture and in things. And like it's anytime I hear an athlete or a singer or whoever talk, I lose respect for them. Like honestly, like I'm not like a person that like hero worships, but like someone like Jalen Hurts, I've never heard him say anything that I was like, fuck this guy. And I promise you, we believe different things. I promise you that he believes something that I don't like, and I don't know about it. And like that's how it should be. Like certain things should be preserved. There should be this mystique. Like the more I learn about authors, the more I don't like them. That's why I don't read biographies because I can always nitpick. I can always look at somebody's life. I can always look at some famous person and see something they did when they were young, and it completely diminishes their work. And I think there's certainly an element to this.
Eventually part company with Freud. It was partly, I think, with the publication of your book, The Psychology of the Unconscious. Is that correct?
That was the real cause.
Well, now, before you...
Oh, I mean the final cause, because it had a long preparation. You know, from the beginning I had a reservatio mentalis. I couldn't agree with quite a number of his ideas.
Which ones in particular?
Well, chiefly his purely personal approach and his disregard of the historical conditions of man. You see,
See, this is Jung had a deep interest in myths. Freud liked to explain that everything is a product of the environment and the thing we were raised in, where Jung thought there was more universal ideas that explained the deepness of problems. It's really what
we depend largely upon our history. We are shaped through education, through the influence of the parents, which are by no means always personal. They were prejudiced or they were influenced by historical ideas or what I call dominance. And, uh, and that is a most decisive factor in psychology.
he's talking about archetypes right now. How we're shaped by these mythic images that kind of guide us to be a certain thing. And the easiest way to think about archetypes is what is a hero? Hero is one of the most important archetypes. What makes somebody a great hero is the ability to self-sacrifice, the ability to put others' lives in front of you. And every single culture, every single society has heroes. And what makes a hero might look differently, but it's all the same sort of qualities that we all aspire to be. And you shoot for different archetypes in different facets of life. Like very early on as a young man, what you try to be as a hero. You try to go out into the world and achieve some level of mastery and come back and come back with the gifts. You know, you can go the whole Joseph Campbell route of things with the hero's journey. But towards later years in life, what you do is you take the skills and the wisdom that you learned, and then you inspire the next generation. You teach the next generation of people. It's the old man archetype. Early on into the hero's journey, you're the trickster, you're the joker, you're the person that's playing around with the darker aspects of your personality that you haven't yet mastered. And as you get closer to mastery, you become closer to a hero. That sort of thing.
And
We are not of today
I
or of
summarized them very
yesterday.
briefly.
We
It's
are of an immense
I don't know if
age.
it made any sense.
was it not partly your observation, your clinical observation of psychotic cases, which led you to differ from Freud on this?
It was partially my experience with schizophrenic patients that led me to the idea of certain general historical conditions.
Is there any one case that you can now look back on and feel that perhaps it was the turning point of your thought?
Oh, yes. I made quite a number of experiences of that sort, and I went even to Washington to study Negroes at the psychiatric clinic there in order to find out whether they have the same type of dreams.
I wasn't sure he said this. This was in the 50s, okay? Um, Jung traveled the world to interpret dreams of different groups of people and really kind of came to the discovery that like the appearances of these archetypes might be different, the appearance of these symbols might be different, but they're universal to man. There's something much older than a civilization. There's something that exists at the root of all humanity.
As we have. And these experiences and others led me then to the hypothesis that there is an impersonal stratum in our psyche. And I can tell you an example. We had a patient in the ward. He was quiet but completely dissociated, schizophrenic. And he was in the clinic already for over 20 years. He had come into the clinic, as a matter of fact, being a young man, a little clerk, and did no particular education. And once I came to the ward, and he was obviously excited and called to me, took me by the lapel of my coat and led me to the window.
I don't know where this is going. I've never heard this
And said,
story.
look, now you must see. Now look at it. Look up at the sun and see how it moves. You see, you must move your head too, like this, and then you will see the follows of the sun. And, you know, that's the origin of the wind. And you see how...
Oh, I know what he's talking about. Okay, so this guy is basically explaining like old phenomena that's like straight out of like or hermetic texts that he has no knowledge of, but he's describing them in the same way. And what Jung discovered is that these schizophrenic ramblings are like the same things that were written down in ancient texts, the same descriptions, the same symbols, the same sort of things. And really, one of his most interesting works, it's called Psychology and Alchemy. And what it basically breaks down is that there's these symbols that are universal to everyone that kind of signal a certain stage of development, that kind of signal a certain stage of your psychosis and how well adjusted you are.
how the sun moves as you move your head from one side to the other. Now, of course, I didn't understand it at all. I thought, there you are, he's just crazy. But that case remained in my mind. And 4 years later,
We have 15 minutes left in this video. I think I'm gonna end the stream now. Um, I'm hungry and I gotta do some stuff before my class, but I'm gonna probably gonna stream again later. Um, Probably just continue this video and maybe find another video. But thank you guys for being here. It was a very fun stream. It was a very good time. Um, yeah, hopefully I catch you later. Hopefully I stick to it and stay consistent. Peace out. Catch you in the next one.